Hi everyone, it's me, Dr. Kate, here with your week 3 video lecture. And I hope that you take the time to watch it. And if you've heard me say this, you're already watching it. So maybe I don't need to tell you to watch it. Anyway, hi. Really happy that we're moving on to the next unit. It's called Identities and Ideologies. And in this unit, we're going to explore some different sexual subcultures. And then next week, we're spending our time reading a book that breaks down some myths about LGBTQ life. So, but for this week, you have one discussion board that's due on the 26th by 11:59 p.m. So don't forget to do that, and also to work on it early enough so that you have time to respond to a peer. The first reading for this week is by J. Jack Halberstam. It's called What's That Smell? And it's about what she calls queer time. And this is a pretty dense text. It's from the discipline of queer theory, and it's quite challenging. So I wanted to just give you a couple of tips going into it. First, whenever I read something that's really challenging for me to understand, what I try to do when I'm reading is find the main point. So I look for terms like, I look for lists that an author might make, or key phrases, and then how the author might define them. I spend some extra time with the introduction and the conclusion and the sort of first sentence and last sentences of paragraphs to try and get what I can out of the reading. And most importantly, if you're struggling with the reading, is to just keep reading, and you'll get out of it what you can. And hopefully the discussion board and this little lecture will help you understand things a bit better. So What's That Smell is about queer temporality. And when Halberstam is talking about temporality, he's talking about how time unfolds, and he's talking about queer time versus heterosexual time. And heterosexual time, he argues, is reproductive time. So this idea that, you know, you're born, you go to school, you go to prom, you lose your virginity, you go to college, you get a job, you meet somebody, and you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, you raise your kids, and they go through the same cycle, and then that's how it works, right? So this idea of reproductive time, that are the expected stages of life that unfold for heterosexual people, are sort of right around that heterosexual family structure. Now, you might remember that D'Amelio argued that that capitalism does away with the need for the nuclear family, but at the same time, capitalism needs the nuclear family, right? It needs a nuclear family to produce laborers, and so new workers, right, children, but then also to do the work to get the worker to work the next day. So if you think about all the labor that happens in the household, grocery shopping, laundry, cooking, feeding, emotional support, all that work, the capitalist needs somebody to do it, and sort of outsource it to the nuclear family and to women into that nuclear family. So you see all these ideological supports that argue that the middle-class family is like the bedrock of America. That's the most important thing. And it helps structure how heterosexuality imagines life course. So Halberstam argues that because for a very long time, and I think this is sort of changing, but we can talk about that in the discussion board if you like, queer people haven't had that kind of time, right? That kind of sense of marriage and reproduction. This doesn't mean that queer people haven't formed for a long time, haven't been forming long-term relationships or having children. It just means that it's not the expectation. And because for so long it was illegal to get married, and it was it was seen as something that was, the promiscuity of gay people was seen as like its own thing, right? Because of sort of lacking that sense of required time, right? You're not even allowed to go to prom, right? That means that reproductive life course doesn't shape the life choices for gay people, and that this expands. So Halberstam will talk about the extended adolescence that queer people have access to, which he calls queer time, right? So subcultural practices, things like being in the punk band or staying out and going to shows, all like that's the kind of stuff that for straight people you grow out of. But she argues that queer people, without the mandate of reproductive heterosexual time, get to continue to enjoy. And so what's important about this for Halberstam, a couple of things. One, that that queer people can imagine different and new ways of being in the world, right? To expand what we think of as the requirements for living a full human life. And also, much like D'Amelio, the strategies that queer people have developed to survive in a culture that doesn't sort of want them to can be really helpful to people of all sexualities as the nuclear family becomes not only less important but less stable for everybody, right? So how do you live your life and support yourself and deal with things like illness and aging without the nuclear family? The people who can show you how to do that are the queer people who have been doing that within their subcultures for a long time. So that's sort of a quick gloss on Halberstam's essay. And then the next set of texts, first I'm asking you to watch the movie Paris is Burning. And I recommend watching it before you read Marlon Bailey's essay, only because Bailey's essay is also quite challenging, and the sort of context from Paris is Burning will really help you, I think, understand that essay. So Paris is Burning is a classic in the field. I've seen it a zillion times, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies. If you are a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race or FX's show Pose, you'll see a lot of the roots of those things in this documentary from, I think it's from 1991. And it's about the ball scene in New York City and in the 1980s and early 1990s. And it's an example of another kind of subculture that creates its own sense of time, of family, of what it means to be yourself that you don't have in sort of mainstream culture. So when you're watching that film, I want you to keep a lookout for what theorists call queer kinship, so the ways that people make family in the ballroom houses. And you don't have to know what ballroom houses are yet because you're going to watch the movie. And then also pay attention to this idea of realness. What does it mean to be real? And this is going to be helpful as we think about and complicate ideas of identity. So, and Bailey's essay will also define realness really directly, but the movie gives us examples of what realness is about. It's about survival. It's about being who you know you are, but society won't let you be, right? It's about a lot of different things. So I think that concept of realness and also the way that performance helps people understand who they are better will help us understand how identity is formed in deeper ways. So those are your two main readings and your film for the week. So happy reading, and please send me an email or ask for a phone call if you're really struggling with these articles. I want you to have the support you need to understand them as best you can. So just drop me an email if you need any help, and otherwise I'll see you on the discussion boards. Bye-bye.